So the nervous system is a really important system of our body, and it's composed of the cells of the nervous system. And the cells of the nervous system are called neurons. So I've actually got a picture of a neuron using a really pretty serious microscope over here. So it just kind of looks like a bit of crazy bits of string dangling all over the place. It looks like a really kind of funny cell, but it has got some parts of a cell. So when I look at this picture, it's a bit hard to kind of see where everything is. So I've also got a picture of a drawing of a neuron, and it's easier to kind of go through a neuron when we look at this picture here. So a neuron's got a cell body. So this is the cell body, and all cells have a cell body. It's where all the parts of the cell live. And of course a neuron, like basically all cells, has also got a nucleus, and the nucleus is the control center of the cell. It's got the DNA in it, and it makes sure that the cell functions appropriately. So they're the two parts of a neuron, which are similar to all cells of the body, really. But then it's got some really interesting differences. So a neuron's also got some series of dendrites, so these kind of branches. And dendrites collect the message. So they collect a message from somewhere, because the cells of the nervous system, their job is to pass messages around the body. So the dendrites collect the message, whatever it is. And they send the message, the dendrites send that message all the way down the dendrites, and they send it along something called an axon. So an axon is this other long thread, I suppose, of the cell. So this all underneath here, this is all the axon, and this is how the message gets passed from one end of the body to the next. Now the axon is actually, it works a little bit like a power cord, because the nervous system sends messages electrically. So it sends little electrical messages around the body. And what's really important about power cords, so that you don't get electrocuted, is they've got plastic on them, so that if you grab a power cord, the electricity doesn't flow into your body. Well, the nervous system has the same thing, or the cells of the nervous system have the same thing. They've got something called myelin sheath. So this is actually a layer of fat. These fatty little layers around the axon protects the message and make sure it isn't lost, and make sure that message can travel all the way down the axon of the neuron. So the message is picked up by the dendrites, it travels down them, along the axon, which is insulated by myelin sheath, which protects the message so it doesn't escape, and then it ends up at axon terminals. That message ends up at axon terminals, and the message is passed on to maybe another neuron, or it might be passed on to an effector, something like a muscle or a gland, to tell it to do something. And how does the message get passed on? Well, actually, at these axon terminals, so after it's gone, dendrites, axon terminals, it's been insulated by myelin sheath, it travels to what's called a synapse. And over here I've got a diagram of a synapse. So this here is an axon terminal. And the axon terminal passes the message on via some little chemical molecules called neurotransmitters. And these neurotransmitters are found in these they're called vesicles, these little balls in the axon terminals of the neuron cell. So these little teeny tiny neurotransmitters, I'll draw them I suppose in red. So these are little teeny tiny neurotransmitters, these little chemicals. When a message is going to be passed on from one neuron to the next, or to an effector, the neuron releases these little chemical neurotransmitters. They cross the synapse. So the synapse is a little gap between neurons, really. So it's just a teeny tiny gap, like very small, nanometers small. The neurotransmitters go across that gap, and they fit, like a lock fits into a key, into these receptors on the next neuron. And when the next neuron gets those receptors, gets those keys into its lock, then it will fire, and the message will be passed on to the next place that it needs to go. So the nervous system is a system which controls the body and sends messages around the body, but it's made up of these really special cells called neurons. They've got dendrites which collect the message. The message then travels along the axon, protected by a myelin sheath, goes to the axon terminals, and at the axon terminals, neurotransmitters are released into the receptors of the next neuron. And that's how the nervous system works. And that's happening right now in your brain and in your body millions of times. Neurons are just firing like crazy because you're learning so much.